So I struggled against Potemkin during the Guilty Gear Strive beta. I won like maybe 2 of who knows how many matches against that amalgamation of buttons and command grabs trying to pass as a character. But you know what? That ends today, hopefully. Howdy friends, I'm Giovanna, and this is my first step of many towards not sucking at fighting games. And in this video in particular, I want to go over some of Potemkin's options that gave me trouble personally during the beta and some of the solutions I found, or tried to find. And full disclaimer, if it wasn't apparent, I am indeed a scrub, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but if you're new to Guilty Gear or fighting games in general and find anything I say here of benefit to you, please let me know about it in the comments. Or if you think I'm completely wrong and you have better answers to these options, then I'd love to hear from you as well. Okay, let's get into it. Alright, so the first button I'm going to go over is Potemkin's 2S or crouching slash. Now I know this doesn't seem like a particularly interesting or important button, but hopefully it'll make sense why I think it is in a minute. So his 2S covers a pretty decent range in front of and above him that can catch your jump-ins and your pokes depending on how well you time them. And at 14 frames of startup, at least to me, that's a little fast. So what I prefer to do is play like right outside the range of this move. So of course, if you get a good read on him and his habits, or you just happen to stick out the button at the right time, you can interrupt his 2S. But personally, I think if you dance right around the edge of this move's effective range, it's pretty easy to dash in and whiff punish this move on reaction. So of course, Potemkin's not just going to sit around in 2S all the time. So let's talk about his Mega Fist forward, specifically, or his 236p. So it has slow enough startup that you'd think it'd be relatively easy to deal with, but I always find myself completely baffled at how quickly Pot has positioned himself above my head. But that's okay, because it turns out you can actually just jump and instant air throw the moment you react to him being above you. And I wanted to quickly note that it is a little bit trickier to do this from the range that I like to play this matchup, which again is right outside of his 2S range. But in order to do so, you just have to walk forward a tiny bit and jump forward instant air throw. Now that we've talked about 2S and Mega Fist, we can talk about blocking 2S into forward Mega Fist. Now I don't know if this is something that Pots commonly go for, but it's something that I ran into a lot, at least playing my friend. So firstly, if you block this 2S at almost about max range, and you try to interrupt because it's not a true block string, at least in my case, I just got counter hit out of everything I tried. I tried to air throw, tried to 6P, I didn't record all of this, but I tried to mash pretty much anything that Giovanna has available. So here's what I came up with. His regular 236p forward is -3 on block, it looks like, and that would effectively end his turn, but due to the pushback, it's pretty much negligible it seems, but you would be out of harm's way. Secondly, if you're confident enough to just guard the Mega Fist, while this didn't change frame advantage in the beta, it did reduce pushback enough for you to match something in his face if you tried to press afterwards, as again, regular Mega Fist forward, not dealing with any of that Kara cancel shenanigans, is negative on block. Now, if in the middle of the gap between the 2S and the 236p, as soon as you're out of block stun, you can actually backdash at this range, and I guess technically you can't whiff punish him, but if he mashes after, you win. And to wrap up the 2S into 236p situation, if you happen to block the 2S much closer to Potemkin and he tries to go into 236p, this is not a threat. You can just jump up and instant air throw like you would do if it were a raw Mega Fist. So the next move I'd like to talk about is Potemkin's 6HS, or his forward heavy slash. This move has gigantic range and gigantic pushback on block as well out of the range that Giovanna would like to be in. However, this move doesn't seem to have as much vertical coverage as some of his other buttons, so it's not too big of a deal if you're air dashing in or 214s'ing your way in. But you do have to be careful, because there is a hitbox near his shoulder headish area, it seems, that can catch you. I personally prefer to use 6P in this scenario. As you may know, 6P has upper body invulnerability, so seeing as this move does not reach below your body, it won't interact with you at all. It'll just go right through you. Not to mention, if you do get a counter hit, which is likely in this scenario, you can 236k or the spiral arrow move, on reaction, and get a meaty either close or far slash depending on where exactly you were standing when you hit 6p. And in the event that you're a little late hitting 6p, seeing as the move won't hit you, you'll be able to catch Potemkin's retreating hurtbox on his arm, giving you a whiff punish. And of course, if you happen to be outside of this move's range for some reason, you have plenty of time to dash in and whiff punish if he doesn't Roman cancel it. Now let's look at Hammerfall, the armored charge move that chases you across the entire screen. At 19 frames of startup, this move is pretty easy to react to at the distance I like to play this matchup, and the easiest way to counter it is with throw. And you can throw it pretty late into its animation, which is pretty good for reacting to it as well as waiting to see if Pot's going to try and cancel it. And while I'm not 100% certain how many hits this move can tank, it can be beaten out with multi-hits. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to try this out during the beta, but I was doing some research on this matchup and came across an old Xrd anti-Potemkin guide by ProblemSkater here on YouTube. In that video, he talks about using your Roman cancel upon realizing that you've hit Potemkin's armor to either block, cancel into another special, press another button, or in the case of Strive specifically, letting the Roman cancel rock and capitalizing off that pop-up. And that's pretty much my current pre-release Potemkin game plan, which I'll recap. Standing outside of 2S range is pretty much the core of this game plan, which if he attempts to hit it, you can whiff punish. You can also punish on reaction, Hammerfall, Mega Fist, as well as his 6HS, which again are things that I personally had trouble with during the beta, but there are a couple weaknesses, at least, that I think currently the game plan has, and I'll go over those real quick. So of course there are a few moves that I didn't go over, I guess because I didn't run into them during the beta, but one of them that I think is particularly interesting is his 5HS, which covers a similar range to his 6HS, but is a bit quicker. And at least from what I could tell, it seemed a bit tricky to win against this move in the air unless the move had already whiffed. So I guess neutral jumping and being patient would beat this move, but as I'm sure you know, being in the air near Potemkin is pretty risky. So seeing as this was a beta, a lot of this stuff is subject to change, but at the very least this gives me something to think about as I await the game's release. And Potemkin was pretty strong, but I think even a scrub like me can overcome this matchup with a little lab time and some critical thinking. So again, if this was helpful to you at all, or if it was humorous watching my tiny little brain struggle, drop me a like, let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more scrub content. See you guys in the next one.